is the Seahawkers Podcast, episode 316. I'm Brandon Schultz of the Military Seahawkers, and joining me, my good buddy and Montana Seahawker, Adam Emmert.
I don't know about you, Brandon, but I've had a hard time this week getting psyched to talk about the worst loss in the history of Lumen Field.
It definitely the worst loss in the history of Lumen Field. It's almost one of the worst losses in the history of playing at that particular location, just based on the performance overall. Russell Wilson's performance. I guess you had that 7-point game against the Rams. When was that? Last year, 2 years ago? That was pretty ugly.
Yeah, this was not one of those games that was like one of the worst in Seahawks history. You know, I mean, it's tough to keep things in perspective when you've had a lot of success and you've seen things going a certain way for quite some period of time, especially at the beginning of the season with the offense clicking. And you see people kind of overreacting a little bit in the terms of it's the worst loss ever. But boy, it's one of the worst beatdowns and not even a beatdown, but it's one of the worst losses of the Russell Wilson era. That's for sure. But not in the history of the Seahawks. You know, I mean, you hear people talking in hyperbole.
Oh, yeah. Well, no, in the history of the Seahawks, there have been much worse games for sure. But Russ usually doesn't have stinkers like this, and we will get into it. It is tradition when the Seahawks lose. We usually have people come in and recognize that they were to blame.
No.
Well, let's at least hear out what people had to say.
Okay, but I'm just saying they shouldn't have to do that after this game.
Well, Carlos from Seattle comes in, says, I usually like to blame myself for Seahawks losses, but I'm calling out Brandon and Adam for being way too nonchalant during the last pod. The biggest row of trap games in our season, and you guys took a nap down the stretch. Do better. Love, Carlos from Seattle.
Hey, if he wants to throw it on us, I'm fine with that. I'm just saying all the other little flockers shouldn't have to take the L on this one. This feels like a team problem.
Well, Sean Brooks in Vancouver, Washington comes in as well. He says, you are responsible for this loss because you blew off any pregame analysis. You said this wasn't worth talking about because it was an easy win. You always look for people to take blame for a loss, but I think this one is all on you two.
Okay, well, so once is a coincidence, twice is a trend. Do we have any more, Brandon?
No, but I just...
Okay, because it was getting personal.
I find it curious that Carlos and Sean apparently went to the Bruce Arians School of Leadership and Accountability.
Yeah, I mean,
I just know I didn't have anything to do with it. I bet it was Brandon and Adam.
Right. How's your back feel? I mean, like with both axles going directly over it. Like, are you okay? Are you able to sit up fine?
It was so bad that they're throwing us under the bus.
That's okay.
I mean, what do these guys want us to say? That Colt McCoy owns a chunk of Pete Carroll offensive kryptonite? What was that? The 6-3 loss to the Browns back in 2011, one of the worst Seahawks games I can ever remember, and that's not hyperbole in terms of all Seahawks history. That Seahawks 6-3 game against the Browns in 2011, and that was Colt McCoy's first start against the Seahawks.
Yeah, unbelievable. Look, I was going to sit here and try to explain this loss a little bit to people, but to be honest, I don't know what's wrong. I don't know. I went back and I kind of looked at it, and I'm having a hard time figuring it out because when you lose a game to a guy who the last time he started a game, I'm pretty sure like they were still getting to the games in like horse and carriage by buggy. I think that was the last time Colt McCoy actually started a game, and you lose to him. And then Alfred Morris puts up 14 points on your head, and he hasn't scored since 2018. Like it just, like I don't know. I don't know. That's the best I can say.
I have some thoughts for sure, and we'll get into them. But yes, when Colt McCoy wins his first start against the Seahawks 6-3, and then wins his second start of his career against the Seahawks 17-12. Very frustrating. And we'll close this out. Dave in Clinton, New Jersey comes in, says, there is no blame for the 12s this week. Don't let anyone take the blame on the show. This was awful and so very Seahawky. It's been so many years at this point. I love the Russ and Pete era. I do. But can we bring back Dave Craig and Tez to the VMAC for just this week to teach a class about how many halves there are in a game? There is a common problem with this team, especially that they seem to think that the first half is just to set up a game plan. Then they run out of time at the end to implement it. I'll be back Sunday for this nonsense again, but I'll need a few days.
Catfish.
Catfish! Catfish!
So we're off the hook. And so is Jackson in Denver, who sent in a comment, Chris in Norwich, who sent in a comment. So I appreciate Dave letting us all off the hook.
I think Dave's on the right page here because this definitely feels like this is on the Seahawks this week. I mean, I don't feel like it's on the fans at all. And it's very odd to have seen this team go in after playing a rough offensive game against Philly. You kind of had the sense of, oh, well, there's no way they're going to, go play even that bad again. Like they'll bounce back a little bit. Yeah. They'll have a better offensive game, but then to regress even more when you have pretty much everybody healthy, except for Brandon Shell. And the only thing I can really figure is Brandon Shell the key to the Seahawks offense? Is that what really is happening here?
Dave Damashek always says, a non-quarterback Jenga piece that you look for on any particular team, that if you take that person out for the season and everything crumbles around it, Brandon Shell might be our Jenga piece.
I guess. I find that hard to believe. As I went back and I rewatched, I mean, this game was just weird front to back, right? Like the score at the end of the first half is 5-0. We couldn't corral a block punt and one hand out of bounds cost us 5 points there. Pete's balls shrivel up and get sucked up inside of his body on a 4th and 6. Like that, it was honestly at that moment right there that I said, ooh, the football gods are not going to be happy about this.
Everything that happened in the first half, I don't think there was anything that really went well apart from the opening drive where they get down to the 13. But then, they're inside the red zone. Chris Carson's the guy who got you there, 2 11-yard runs. He had a catch as well, part of that. So he accounted for 27 yards on that opening drive. And then they take Carson out of the game, put Carlos Hyde in there for the red zone. Well, I think Carlos Hyde was only in there for one of the 3 because they went empty backfield 2 out of the 3 plays where they're throwing to the end zone. So that was weird just to go empty. And then the Giants, I know at least one of the plays, they only had to rush 3 dudes and dropped everybody back into coverage because there was no threat of running and they were spying Russell Wilson. And so the opening drive was nuts. The second drive of theirs, the frustrating thing for that one for me was on that 3rd and 4, and they had some problems on 3rd and short in this game. But on 3rd and 4, they drop back. Russell Wilson hits his back foot, and none of the receivers are looking for the football. So what are we doing designing plays on 3rd and short where, and I think we've talked about this before, Russell Wilson, well, there was one guy who was looking for the football. He had Carlos Hyde wide open out in the flat, nobody within 10 yards, and Russ gets sacked for -11.
Yeah, when I was looking at the offense and trying to figure out what is wrong with this thing, especially in this game, just the 2 things that came to mind were sacks and penalties. I mean, in the second half, especially, the penalties were god-awful, man. I mean, how many times were they in 2nd and 20,000?
Yeah, and they were terrible times too.
Terrible times. And Russ, to me, the biggest thing with Russ in the last 2 games that I'm seeing is he is super hesitant to pull the trigger. I think he got the tongue lashing for having that turnover spurt in the middle of the season, and it's kind of broken his confidence. He's not just turning it loose. Even on some of his completions, I remember in the first half, he hits DK on the outside on a comeback, and he's got all day to throw, and he plants his back foot. DK starts the comeback. He's going to be wide open. I mean, anybody with any anticipation knows, like, oh, he's got this. He pumps, he waits, and then he finally throws the ball, and it's a completion, sure, but it was like he was just making so sure that it was going to be a completion that he waited forever. And I feel like on so many dropbacks, that's what I was looking at. I mean, and I'll get to why this Sunday was one of the biggest kick in the balls I've had in a minute. And part of it is that I didn't really get to watch the second half until later. And I had to watch it kind of over my shoulder as I met my dad at a restaurant, and he could see the game. And I don't know how many times he was looking up and going, he's got all day. He's got all day.
Right.
And he doesn't throw the freaking ball and takes a sack. Or if he does go to get rid of it, it's some crappy intentional grounding. Like, it's like, why would you even throw it like that over there to intentionally ground it? There's 1,000 other ways to throw an intentional grounding, or, to get rid of the football here and not get called for intentional grounding.
That's why I went back and looked at the all-22, because I wanted to see what he may have been seeing. And everything you're describing is accurate. It wasn't as though there were, on one of the throwaways, the intentional grounding call, Metcalf was covered up. But as you mentioned, there were other dudes, and he had all kinds of time. I think there were only 3 dudes rushing, and he was so locked in on Metcalf. And that was, I think, the last drive of the first half. They had just got the safety. They had just gotten the ball back. And all they had to do was get 10 yards in with 24 seconds left on the clock. And yes, they didn't have any timeouts, but all you have to do is get 10 yards, and Jason Myers is kicking a field goal, and you're going in 8-0 instead of 5-0. But It was a disaster. Hollister false starts. He throws up that prayer in Metcalf's direction. If he he had all kinds of space to roll out to his right. And if he does that, he has a chance to hit either David Moore deep or Hollister short, or, throw the ball away to either one of those guys and not get an intentional grounding call. So they get the grounding call, they get the 10-second runoff. And then the last play of the half, it looks like it's a broken play. There's all kinds of weird stuff happening. Russ ends up running it with 7 seconds left and no timeouts. You had Posick and Damian Lewis looking like they were expecting a screen to DJ Dallas, but Russ doesn't even seem to look that direction. He had all kinds of problems with the screen. So there was that one, which I think was a screen, but it's hard to even tell looking back at it. You had the one to Hyde, where he was expecting it to open up, and then by the time he gets around to throwing it, he's getting hit by 2 different guys. Hyde ends up catching it, and there's a penalty on the play too. They end up declining the penalty. Hyde catches it for a 6-yard loss. Just everything that happened in that last 2 minutes of the first half, it felt like, if you were to look at that and say, this is a team that put up, 20 some touchdowns in the first 5 weeks of the season, you wouldn't believe it.
No, you wouldn't. And that's what's so odd, is to watch this fall from grace, happen so dramatically. That's the part that is totally perplexing. And to see Russ so rattled and just so unsure of himself. And I don't know what the solution is there, but my number one suggestion would be, can we please change the tempo of this offense?
Yes.
Please. Like that, in the first quarter, like that was the first half overall. That was one thing. I was like, can we just let's get it going? Let's get some
catfish
rhythm. And that would make such a huge difference, I believe, for this offense, to get Russ out there and get him in that rhythm and get him cooking, quote unquote. And just because then you're just seeing it and throwing it rather than overthinking stuff. And it feels like he's overthinking every single play. And Shoddy's drawn everything up to be a 15-yard, 20-yard chunk play.
It's definitely got to be some kind of combination between Shoddy, between Russ, because there's plays where it looks like the plays were drawn up just fine. I think back to, again, going back to the first half toward the end, it gets ugly inside of the 2-minute warning, but they were moving the ball relatively well. Then that screenplay that I mentioned that just completely breaks down. The next play, Russ looks like he's going to run it. And just as he's crossing the line of scrimmage, Tyler, who's right there, he decides to throw it to him, and he has to turn completely around, reach back to the inside. He can't make the catch. Russ, could have picked up 4 or 5 yards, just run it and sliding there. And then on 3rd and 16, it's one of those plays where, it's drawn up as a chunk play. He has Jacob Hollister over the middle, 10 yards, nobody around him, and he's double clutching. So I don't know why in that situation, why he would look at that and decide not to throw. There were a couple times in this game where he double clutches, decides not to throw when it seemed relatively low risk for the direction that he was looking.
That's the hesitancy that I was speaking.
Yeah.
Like just the idea that he's just not processing the information right, or he's just not seeing things well at this point.
Well, maybe if he could stop getting hit so dang much and hold on to the football, like you said, go to the tempo so you can stop getting hit. He's getting hit so much this season.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of it's unnecessary. There's, like we talked about there in this game, there were a lot of times where the Giants would just rush 4. And a lot of times the fourth guy was a delayed, a spy that they just rushed him after he held on to the football so long. And then he'd end up getting hit anyway.
Yeah. And it seems like just the idea of playing two deep safeties is really just discombobulating Russ.
I think it's because of the deep shots. He wants to take the deep shots.
Maybe that's it. And he managed to fit one in against the cover 2 to Tyler early in the game. And he got freaking laid out on the sidelines.
Yeah.
Like he makes the catch, but, and that's the proper read, right? Is that whole shot in between the corner and the safety. But he just couldn't seem to find it again the rest of the game. And I did see in the game plan this week, there was at least the back leaking out late as a check down quite a bit. And, he would hit that with some efficiency.
Yeah.
But I don't know. The offense is just weird. And then the run game actually looked good for the most part with Carson.
Other than that 3rd and 2 that ended up getting stuff where Lewis was called for holding. And
well, then in the second half, you go for it on 4th and 2 and you don't convert. Like that was super frustrating. I mean, and not only that, but it seems like on those 4th and shorts and things like that, it's always Russ rolling to the left. I feel like it's on film.
The weird thing about that play, and yeah, I kind of wish that maybe they would have tried running it in that situation, but they set up they had all 3 tight ends on that play. They were all lined up on the left side with Disley, Parkinson, and Hollister. So they had all 3 of those guys, and 49 for the Giants was opposite them. Mm-hmm. And the only guy to even get a finger on that dude was Hollister, who, like, I don't know, maybe got 3 of his fingers on.
Right.
And that's the guy that ends up getting pressure on Russ as he's rolling out to the left. So how can you, when you have 3 of your tight ends there, and you can't get a more solid block on the dude that's going after Russ? That was frustrating.
It's mind-boggling. But the most mind-boggling thing in this game to me, and it may be no surprise to most people, is when Pete punted on 4th and 6 on the Giants 37 early in the game.
Yeah.
That was so inexcusable. Like, I can't believe that's what happened. I mean, and not only that, but he poked us all in the eye a little bit more and did the typical Pete thing where he takes the intentional delay a game to back it up.
Right.
Catfish!
That made me so furious. That was one of the most ballless moves I have seen by a coach in a long time. I just don't understand why. Okay, if you're risk averse here, then at least try the field goal.
Yeah.
Like, try the field goal or go for it, but don't punt. It's literally the last thing you should do. It makes no freaking sense. None.
Yeah. That was probably one of the most frustrating punts of this season. And Russ had just picked up 11, 12 yards with his legs. It was a 3rd and long.
It's like Pete already had it in his head. And then the other thing with
Pete's explanation, though, was that it was going to be a 55-yard field goal. They, during warmups, they tested out based on the weather, how the wind is going, and kind of decide on a good range for going that particular direction. And
fine, then go for it.
Right.
Fine, then go for it. Like, that's not an excuse, and that's a
catfish
explanation. And then the other thing that Pete did in this game from a coaching standpoint that I can't understand is we were talking about the tempo and the idea that the offense played so freaking slow. They looked like they were the team that had the far lesser talent, and the coach was just trying to make the game shorter and get the heck out of there with a win that's a low-scoring win. Why are you playing into the Giants' hands? What is that? Well, I mean, I don't get it.
Well, I get it from the sense that that's how Pete just likes to play a game, shorten the game, and I don't care if, as long as I have one chance at the end with the ball, then I'll take it. That seemed to be his approach, and they did have that chance at the end of the game. It was maybe the one time that I had no confidence that Russ was actually going to drive down the field and get the game winner.
Yeah, likewise, man.
So let's go back and look at that game-winning drive opportunity, because a couple throws, they're able to get into Giants territory right after they use, I think, just their second timeout, and then it was just a series of plays that you had the 1st and 10 where Swain looked like he had that nice little zone between he was behind the corner, just short of the safety, and then Russ throws it too deep. And it's almost picked off by the safety. It was the right throw, I thought, just because everything short was pretty well covered. But then on the 2nd and 10, you had Lockett, who was just blown up in the middle of the field by Peppers. If he would have caught it, it would have been 3rd and 1. But I think it was a little bit too high of a throw, if I'm being nitpicky. Then 3rd and 10, again, he hits the back of his drop on 3rd and 10. There's nobody looking for the ball.
Yeah.
And then the offensive line on that play too, it just got destroyed, and then from there it was a sack. And why I'm on this hitting the back foot, looking for a receiver, even if you're short on that 3rd and 10, you're in 4-down territory. It's 1 minute left in the game, so have a dude open short, and if you have to take 7 yards in that situation, okay, whatever, it's fine. You got a timeout still. Take a little dump off shot over the middle, call a timeout, and go on 4th down. And instead of doing 4th and 18, maybe you're doing 4th and 3, 4th and 4.
Right, more 4th and more manageable. Now, as far as Russ hitting his back foot on the last step of his drop, and the receiver's not looking back or looking for the ball right at that moment, isn't quite as mission critical as it might seem, because it'd be one thing if he hits his back foot and the receiver is not looking at the ball, but he's starting a break.
Right.
And so there's that, he's just breaking, Russ is anticipating it, and the receiver can't be looking right at that exact instant.
Right.
But by the
that's
time
a good,
the ball
that's a good
gets there,
distinction.
He'll be looking. But it's not like they're even getting into their breaks right about at the timing of the steps. And people would say, well, why are you making a big deal out of this? Because when you look back over history, like look at Bill Walsh when he talked about quarterback play. His number one thing, he was obsessed. He might have had a fetish. I don't know. He was obsessed with quarterbacks' feet. And he would tell the quarterbacks, it's by, on a 3-step drop, this guy's going to be open on, your first step. The next guy's going to be open on your first hitch. And then the next guy's open on your next hitch. It all works together in unison. Your footwork tells you where to throw the ball. That's what he would coach his quarterbacks to do. And so when you don't have that timing, then you're totally discombobulated and just trying to make crap up on the fly, which Russ is fine at, but it's not scripted offense. This is poorly designed at this point, that the timing is so piss poor between the quarterback and the receivers. And so you're right to bring it up. You're right to bring up the footwork.
Well, you know what? Let's take an email from Brett in Foshan, China. Says, after a game like that, I usually need a few days to get over it. But after this game, I just feel clarity. Colt McCoy is not a better quarterback than Russell Wilson. This game shows that an inferior team can beat a better team with better scheme and strategy. The Hawks were clearly outcoached today. Good strategy uses team strengths, hides their weaknesses, and adapts to a defense. I just can't understand why in a game like this one, we did not see more play action, RPOs, jet sweeps, and screens to keep the defense guessing. If the Hawks want to become a contender and not simply make up numbers in the playoffs, they need a better OC. Time to stop blaming the defense, running backs, and O-line. Keep up the good work, Adam and Brandon, and go Hawks.
Hey, go Hawks, all the way from China. That's awesome. And, from China, you can see exactly, a bit of what we're talking about. And I think his point to why are we not running more RPOs and more motion and just things that disguise what you're doing a little bit more, I think is a great point. It's a totally fair point. And as far as it's not the defense's fault, well, it's so weird that the dumpster fire defense finally gets like mediocre and decent. And then the amazing offense turns into a dumpster fire offense. Like, why can't we have two nice things? I don't get that. And the defense, honestly, pretty much the entire game for 3 quarters played great football. But then the third quarter happened and they just forgot to play run defense.
Yeah. Yeah. And it was, you give up one 60-yard run and they're in the red zone. And then right after that, they have another 13-yard run for the first down. And then they're getting it in the end zone and getting the 2-point conversion. And that's all it took, because you were so inept offensively and you couldn't capitalize on your one big special teams play that you got in the first half. Suddenly your 5-0 lead is an 8-5 deficit. And then they go for it on fourth down, which I didn't have any problem with going for it on fourth down at midfield. Disley comes up just short on that third down play. And then by not making it, you're giving him.
Did he come up just short on that third down play?
I went back and looked at it. It was
spot.
pretty. I don't think it was a terrible call to call it short.
Well, they called it like a yard short.
Yeah.
If anything, it might have been like an inch or two. I don't know. I thought that was a horrific spot, but
I don't know about horrific. Like, maybe they could have given him an extra football length, but still, they're throwing it there anyway, so it doesn't even matter.
Yeah. Yeah. But then they go for it. They don't convert, and the Giants cram it right back down your throat. And that's what was weird, is I had to leave the cabin at halftime because the transmission blew up in one of my cars. So that was cool. And so my dad had come to pick it up on the car trailer and take it to the mechanic so I didn't have to pay for a wrecker. And as I'm sitting there, when I left the house, it was 5-0.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of looking over my, just over my shoulder at the TV, and I'm kind of seeing the game, but not really. And he pulls out his phone, and I'm like, well, we were up 5-0. I'm sure, it'll be fine going out. And he's like, oh, you're down 14-5. What? Huh? How?
Yeah.
How did that happen? It was absolutely mind-boggling. It was just one bad quarter by the defense in terms of run fits, and then having the short field after the failed fourth down attempt. And then they give up the final 3 points because Chris Carson suddenly forgot how to catch footballs there for a couple minutes.
Chris Carson?
Yeah, Chris Carson. Russ throws it right to his
catfish
mug, and it bounces off his hands, and it's an interception.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And then the defense gives up another 3 points. It's ridiculous.
Well, I even was looking at the drive before that, because when they're down 14-5, thanks to a missed extra point, they get the ball back and they're moving the football. Then they get in the situation where it's 1st and 10. But on this play, on this particular 1st and 10 play, Russ drops back and he is locked in on DK Metcalf looking for the big play. And I can see why. He had Metcalf one-on-one on his dude, but it just wasn't coming open. And Russ doesn't look anywhere else, because if he had looked anywhere else, he would have had Swain on the 40-yard line with the safety 15 yards behind him. He was 10 yards beyond the linebackers that were in front of him. He had Lockett coming open, talking about hitting the back foot and a guy making his break. Tyler Lockett was making his break over the middle of the field, didn't have anybody in front of him, had a step on his dude. He could make the throw there. And then he had a dude out in the flat even. So every single dude not named DK Metcalf was wide open at the time that he hit his back foot. And he just stares down DK. Then the guy spying Russ takes off just as Leonard Williams is putting a spin move on Dwayne Brown, and he gets sacked for -15. And then you have Jamarco Jones not on the line of scrimmage, and it's 2nd and 30. Fortunately, they're able to get 11 back, and they have 3rd and 19. And on the 3rd and 19 play, they actually have DK on the sideline. Tyler Lockett, who you could throw it up to, see what happens, deep as well. But instead, Russ double clutches it and gets a yard.
Yeah.
After running.
And the other thing about these sacks, too, is that earlier in the year, Russ was stepping up in the pocket. And when he did get sacked, it was like a 3-yard sack. In this game, it felt like a reversion back to 2016, where he's just bailing backwards and just fading backwards. And all of a sudden now it's a 20-yard sack.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a huge difference. You talked about him just staring down DK, other guys being open and all that. I think it's a decent time to bring up what we're hearing from a lot of the other little flockers on game day. Russ doesn't look mentally sharp. It's like he's distracted. It's like he's not locked in. And a lot of people point to the idea that he's got too many irons in the fire outside of football right now. And it's affecting his gameplay.
I could say that that's it, but I feel like he's always had several irons in the fire. I mean, I think that thought is there because it does kind of correlate, like his downward trend after a few weeks of the season. Like when he trademarked the "let Russ cook" phrase, I think it was that week. And ever since that week, it's been turnovers and relatively mediocre games. So I could see the correlation there. I don't know. I think it would have more to do with the number of hits that he's taking this year than anything else. But maybe.
Yeah.
He just doesn't strike me as a guy who is going to be distracted based off of things off the field.
It doesn't matter how focused you are as an individual. I mean, you get too many things going and you just can't possibly be as locked in. You just can't. There's just too much going on. And I think he does need to kind of simplify his life down just a little bit. I mean, when you're hawking perfume on Instagram at this point, like, come on. It's just, it's too much. It's too much.
Yeah. And you've got the podcast going and all the other appearances.
Yeah. It just seems to be taking too much time out of his day. And you could say, well, it's not like he's going to take that time and put it directly into football. And it's like, that's okay. Maybe chill.
It's him. Maybe relax. Play with the kids.
Exactly. Clear your head. Because it just feels like he's overthinking this thing.
Can Russ get his groove back in December and going into the playoffs?
I would say it's more likely than unlikely.
Okay.
I mean, even after that game, which was, it made me so mad I can barely even put it into words. The game made me so freaking angry. Even with that, I still believe that this is a team that can kind of figure it out going down the stretch here. And look, am I worried about the Jets a little more now coming up? Yeah. But I still think
this is what our team is doing to us. Now, we didn't think we had to worry about the Giants, but now we think we have to worry about the Jets.
Right. And it's not out of the realm of possibility that we go 0 for New York this year. Buffalo, the Giants.
So I guess the Buffalo was, the road one. So, 0 for New York altogether. Yikes.
Yeah, that can't happen. So if there was an opportunity for a get-right game, this should be it.
Well, Kevin Moore is in the same headspace as us in the Ring of Honor. I think is where he posted this. Says, I am always more concerned about losing to bad teams than good teams. It doesn't even surprise me anymore because we always do this. A loss to a pathetic team with a strong defensive line happens almost every year. And you go from one team with a strong defensive line to another one where that's probably the Jets' only strength is their defensive line.
Exactly. And then you look at the Washington football team and their strength is the defensive line too. And you're like,
catfish!
Damn it. Are we really going to lose to like one position group going down the stretch?
And all these teams down the stretch too, you talk about, well, maybe they can get the run game going to help Russ out a little bit. All of these defenses are good against the run.
And the run game's going.
Yeah.
It's doing what needs to be done. I mean, Carson, I don't know what his average is this year, but in that last game, he more or less was ripping them off 7, 10, 11 yards at a time.
Yeah, Carson's actually at his career high for yards per attempt, 4.9. 2018, he was 4.7. Yeah. So he's in the high fours.
Which is a lot. That's really good.
Oh, yeah. It means that you're getting those chunks of 10, 15 yards here and there because to make up for those 2 and 3 yards. Yeah.
So the run game is there. when Brandon Shell has been in, the pass protection has been there. So it comes down to either Shoddy or Russ, right?
Well, I'm just hopeful that, with this game coming up against the Jets, this is the Brandon Shell revenge game. Now going to face his former team.
Him and Jamal Adams.
Jamal. I'm less concerned about that guy. This is the Brandon Shell revenge game.
You're right. It's a good point.
I don't know if we just have George Fant and Shell put both those guys on the field and
bare knuckle fight.
Yeah,
yeah. It's not a bad thought.
Change things up. Just have it be a little bit different instead of a football game.
Well, you used to hear the old New York Knicks when they were coached by Pat Riley, their mantra going into the game was, we're going to win one of two things, either the game or the fight. And maybe we just, if we lose, hopefully we win the fight,
You know what? I was calling for physicality by the defense a few weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
I'm ready to call for some physicality on the offensive side now.
Yeah, especially up front. There's no doubt about it. But it is strange that you're sitting here thinking about the Jets that are 0 for everything.
0 for 12, and they're coming off what might be one of their most frustrating losses of the year.
Yeah, and they got rid of Greg Williams, and the defensive players are going to be fired up about that. Nobody likes Greg Williams.
No, they're going to be so happy.
Yeah, that's not good. And this turns into this weirdo matchup. And I got this text from our resident reverse jinxer, the DCH, after the game. And I think this sums up how most people are feeling about this right now. Just, I'm done, honestly. I'd rather forget they exist than hope for some kind of normal football week after week. The idea of normal football. Why does it have to be bizarro football? Why does this team have to have these ridiculous ups and downs? Can we just have consistency and be able to look at the Giants with Colt McCoy and the Jets that are just unraveling, and feel just oh, no worries, we'll win those games, and then go out and just beat them in no worries type of ways. I would love that. But no.
I would love to go back to early on in the season where we were scoring 30 points a game, but the defense was allowing 20, 30 points a game. I will take that at this point. That is more entertaining football to watch than what we've seen these last couple weeks.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a type of football.
I'd rather watch good offense than good defense.
Really?
Yeah. When it's Russell Wilson and you expect good offense and you get really bad offense, that's frustrating.
Well, that is frustrating with as much talent as on the team. There's no doubt about it. I just think that this defense looks like it's turned a corner for the most part. Can't we pair it back up with that offense from earlier? Can't we have both?
I would love both. I feel like I'm asking too much to ask for both.
I don't think so. That's normal football. Just play the type of football that you can play.
Now we have Sam Darnold coming off his best game of the season, quote unquote. Apparently turning it over 3 times is a good day for him. Had his best quarterback rating of the season. He threw 40% of his season touchdown passes against the Raiders last weekend. He was at 3 going into the day, and he finished with 5.
There we go. Good for him. See, the thing is that I haven't watched a ton of Jets football this year because I don't hate myself that much. Uh-huh. So I haven't really done it. So
it was so weird. The Jets Raiders game, they put that on NFL Rewind. I think it was Monday or Tuesday night that I flipped on NFL Network, and that was the game that they picked to show.
Okay. I guess.
Well, you have to memorialize Greg Williams' final game and the play that got him fired. Did you see the play that got him fired?
I did not.
It was the Raiders.
He blitzed or something.
12 seconds left, and and they're at about midfield. So it's one of those situations where you're getting to the point where you need to Hail Mary it to the end zone, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
Greg Williams sends the house. He leaves their undrafted cornerback, Lamar Jackson, not the Lamar Jackson, the undrafted cornerback from this draft,
mm-hmm.
on Henry Ruggs for the Raiders, who was the fastest dude coming out of the draft this year, picked up in the first round. So you got undrafted dude on first round dude. The Raiders leave in, all their guys, their running back, tight ends to protect Carr. And he just throws it up to Ruggs for a touchdown. He beats the dude, and it's an easy touchdown.
So the Raiders actually anticipated the all-out blitz from Williams in that situation.
Yeah.
Well, then kudos to them. To be honest, from your description, I don't hate it. Maybe I need to watch it because at least they weren't playing prevent, you know?
Sure.
We're so sick of seeing that as Seahawks fans in those situations.
Isn't that this kind of the situation where you play prevent though, where you put,
that might be the one. I'd need to go back and watch it.
Where you put, like 4 or 5 guys deep so that they're at the end zone, so you just prevent the scoring play on the last play of the game.
I don't understand why they fired Greg Williams for that though, instead of giving him a bonus. Because didn't he keep them from winning the game so that they could ensure to get the number 1 pick? Isn't he doing them a solid? And how is he the guy that gets fired and not Adam Gase? Because that's the one thing the little bit of Jets football I've watched this year, and I've maybe watched a quarter here and there throughout the season. Every time I watch the Jets, especially offensively, I'm sitting there going, what in the God green earth is Adam Gase doing here? He makes the weirdest decisions. So one thing I'm really excited about this game is I don't think Pete will be the coach to make the weirdest decisions in this game for a change. I think it will be Adam Gase.
I think that's fair to say, but I'm sure the Jets offense is pretty bad this year. But I've been looking at the Jets defense because you remember back to the days where the Seahawks were on this historic pace for passing yards allowed.
Yeah.
Well, they're still number 32 in the league, but the team that's number 31 is the Jets. The difference is the Jets have been bad all season. And you look at the last 3 games, the Jets are number 32 in the league now over the last 3 games, allowing almost 320 yards per game. Seahawks over the last 3 games, number 5 in the NFL, 180 passing yards per game.
Yeah.
Which is slightly more than what Sam Darnold has on average per game.
There you go. I would like to think the defense should have a similar performance to what we saw against the Giants. They got 10 of their points they gave up were on short field. So I have a difficult time being mad about that. They gave up the 1 run in the third quarter, the 60-yard run. That's about it.
The only thing I can see this, if the Seahawks defense just leaves the middle of the field wide open, because for whatever reason, Darnold, that's his one that's his one strength as a quarterback. He can throw straight ahead.
Okay.
And so if they just leave the straight ahead throws open for him, then it could be a good day for Darnold.
I think the annoying thing about what we're going to see on Sunday is Sam Darnold running around and the pass rush not getting home. Because Colt McCoy got away a few times. Colt McCoy from the pass rush. And I'm going to get mad about that. I can tell already I'm going to be very angry that Sam Darnold, there's going to be 3 plays where I was like, well, just tackle the guy.
Yeah. And Darnold's the least mobile guy out of that entire quarterback class, except for maybe the dude who went to Arizona that season.
Oh, are you talking about Rosen?
Yeah, Rosen.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Definitely Rosen is the least mobile. But Darnold actually isn't immobile. He's a fairly mobile guy.
Yeah. Okay.
He moves around the pocket fine. He can get out of trouble a little bit.
You're talking about the same dude?
Yeah. I'm not. Get out of here. I see you staring at the computer looking at stats. Watch him play.
I'm just trying to find some stats to back up what you're saying.
You don't need to. Just watch the games.
Okay.
I've watched Sam Darnold. I studied a lot of his stuff at USC. And one of the big things in his scouting report was that he was good on the move.
Well, you know what? If Colt McCoy can escape the Seahawks pass rush, then I don't have any doubt that Sam Darnold can escape some of the Seahawks pass rush.
There you go. Yeah.
But will Jamal Adams be able to break the sack record by a defensive back in this game against the Jets?
I would put money on it if I had to bet.
Because he only needs 1 sack.
And he's one of those people that I do believe has that kind of Jordan mentality of, just sticking it to everybody he's ever felt slighted by ever. And I think he genuinely wants to just shove it right up Adam Gase's ass.
Catfish!
I think he does.
Maybe Gase just doesn't have any expectation for that, and he doesn't even think that it could possibly happen, so he doesn't even strategize for it.
That would be in the wheelhouse for Gase, no doubt about it. But it is kind of astonishing that Adams is in that neighborhood, right? Like, I think we can feel pretty confident by the end of this year, he's going to be the record holder.
Oh, yeah. With 4 games left and only needing 1 sack the way he's been going.
You would think.
And it's wild considering how many games did he miss? 4?
Yeah. But, the Seahawks overpaid. So,
yeah. Just think of all those great pickups they could have gotten at the end of the first round for the next 2 years.
Right.
They probably would end up being better than Adams.
Oh, for sure. We know that for sure when they make that trade. That's why you say they overpaid.
Hey, you know what, though? Speaking of first round picks, Jordan Brooks in this last game looked pretty good.
Flash. He's really, he seems to be putting it together as we come down the stretch. I like what I'm seeing out of him, the speed, the aggressiveness. He is great in run support. Not a whiff. Doesn't look like a whiff.
I saw more out of Jordan Brooks in that one game than we saw from the dude that was picked up 4th overall. Why can't I think of his name?
Yeah, we were picking in that part of the draft, so I didn't care. And if he hasn't been playing much this year, then
no. I mean the Seahawks linebacker that they picked up number 4 overall in what was it? 2009.
Back in the day, Curry.
Yeah, Aaron Curry.
Oh, okay. I wasn't picking up what you were putting down there for a second. Yeah, no, he definitely had more just Sunday than Curry had his entire career. I think that's fair.
Which is weird to me. Like how everybody can go into a draft and saying Aaron Curry, this linebacker, can't miss. He's a can't miss linebacker. He's going to be a stud.
Turned out he didn't love football.
Yeah.
That's okay. I mean, it wasn't okay for the Seahawks, but for him,
Right.
Just not his deal. I understand.
Well, this feels like a good game for Russell Wilson to get back to being Russell Wilson. If not, it's going to be a pretty short remainder of the season.
Yeah.
And we need him to be the normal Russell Wilson because coming up next, I want to talk about how the NFC West is shaping up, Adam.
Okay. Not in first anymore. I know that much. And that sucks.
Yeah, but kind of in first. Tied for first.
Sort of.
All right, let's get to the second half of the show. Getting into the second half of the show. Well, Adam, the good news from this past weekend, the Cardinals lost again. But
yeah.
That means that the Rams won.
Yeah.
Now they're kind of in first place with the tiebreaker, 8-4.
Yeah. I mean, it's frustrating, but again, they're right there. We can still control our own destiny here.
They play New England Thursday night, so probably by the time you're hearing this, you know the result of the game.
Oh, by the time you're hearing, I guess, by the time I'm recording this, I know the result of that game. You think Bill Belichick is done owning Sean McVay?
I don't think so. I don't think he's done.
I don't either.
This was my one upset. There's not a lot of good upset picks this week. That was my one upset pick.
I think it's a solid one. Yeah.
Because if I had to pick a coach to own another coach, it would be New England owning McVay.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure Belichick doesn't want people to be like, well, maybe that Super Bowl win was kind of a fluke, the way that he coached that up. No, he wants to make it so everybody goes, oh, he really is, the smartest human to ever coach.
San Francisco lost, so that was a nice result.
Yeah.
You don't have to worry about them anymore, I think.
No, I think we're done worrying about them. But hey, give them credit for kind of fighting back there for a minute.
It made some people believe.
Yeah.
Buffalo sweeps the NFC West with that, if not for the stupid Cardinals Hail Mary.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm glad you didn't call it by that other name people have been trying to call it.
No, I don't believe anybody needs to do that.
No.
That was the only Cardinals. That was the only Cardinals win in the last 5 games. They've been 1-5 after the bye.
Yeah, they got exposed. Or
1-4. One of the two.
Yeah, I mean, that Kingsbury, rinky-dink
catfish
is only going to work for so long. We were saying it all offseason.
It shouldn't have worked against us.
It worked once. It didn't work twice.
Well, now they have the Giants this week. The Cardinals do.
Oh, well, that's a win for the Cards.
So Giants, Eagles for the Cardinals back-to-back.
Yeah.
You think they'll win both of those?
Yeah, I do. Because I think, I don't know. They could lose to the Eagles, but the Giants, they had their one Oh my gosh, did they really just pull that crap off? When? That's what just happened.
And they're done with that now.
They're done with that now. Football can only be so weird for so long. I keep telling myself a Seahawks fan.
It has to get back to normal soon.
Yeah.
Hey, some team news. That's good. And we're throwing out there Josh Gordon. He's going to be back for the final 2 games of the season.
Cool. We'll see him for about 3 plays.
Yeah.
But good for him. I mean, on a personal level, like, I'm happy for Josh Gordon.
Yeah, it's about time they reinstated him after Antonio Brown.
I'm just have a really hard time being mad on the inside at somebody who just likes to smoke weed.
Sure. I have to remind you every time, though, that he did have the PED suspension in there, too. But yes.
Yeah, but I mean, overall, his problems with the NFL have been
generally around that.
Yeah. Yeah. Which, whoop-de-freaking do. I know that makes you uncomfortable. I see your face.
Why would it make me uncomfortable?
I don't know, because it's against the rules.
Like, what rules?
The weed rules. Well, I guess not in Washington.
Or in Montana, even.
Yeah, I guess that's coming.
We just passed that law this time around.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
I mean, as a federal employee, it's against the rules, I suppose.
Yeah, well, they're just being dicks. Look, I'll tell you what, when that rule does come into effect, every one of these shows, I'm just going to do Blazed. Just going to do that from now on. Why not? What's the difference?
This can be the Blazing Seahawks podcast.
Oh, sure. Yeah, it'll be a lot of fun. Just rip-dazzled.
Josh Gordon can be on our cover art.
You think that's what's going to be on the cover art?
We can workshop it.
Yeah.
Hey, Rashad Penny coming back to practice this week.
Hey, man, you can't have enough healthy backs. I'm cool with it. I'm happy for him. I hope he looks good. I'll take it. But it's still a little bummed that he got drafted where he got drafted.
I don't know why they can't keep, it's like the quarterback situation. You keep your backup in a bubble. We just need Hyde or Carson to be healthy, and they can't manage to keep both healthy at the same time for whatever reason.
No, it's been years of this.
It does feel like 2017 again, as far as the offense and not having anybody healthy for Russ to hand off to.
Yeah, and that situation, sure. But the offensive line is better now.
It is.
Than it was in 2017.
That's true.
That's why I believe that this will get better.
Another thing that's better than 2017 is that we have more members of the flock. People joining the flock, Adam.
All right. Even after depressing loss, that's great.
I know. I was happy to see it. We got 4 new members. We got Samir Reed, who came in at $5 a month. Welcome to the flock to Samir.
Yeah, man. Welcome, dude.
Sebastian Bell in at $12.12. Welcome to the flock, Sebastian.
Oh, man. All right. So another Ring of Honor member then.
Yes. But I know we had some people come in who were not Facebook.
They're anti-Facebook?
Yes. I know we had somebody who was anti-Facebook come in this last week. I don't know if it was Sebastian off the top of my head. I had this discussion.
Well, good. Don't out him on air. They'll come and get him.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mike Lyles also in to the Ring of Honor. And I know Mike's in because I've seen him. And Mike came in at the 12-12 level, said, "Hey guys, thank you for your dedication to the Hawks and all us fans throughout the world. I've been freeloading for longer than I want to personally admit, and I am really glad to be able to contribute to your podcast. I started listening while I was stationed in Italy and carried you to Germany with me, and it's a highlight of my weekly commute to catch the latest episode. From Mike in Langenbach, Germany. Go Hawks."
Hey, man, thanks for making us international jet setters. I didn't know that we'd been to all those places.
We've been to Italy. We've been to Germany. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's great.
Mike's taking us with us.
Hey, it's nice to live vicariously through Mike.
And someone who I pronounced her name earlier this week with a German pronunciation, now coming after an email from somebody in Germany. I have to look at her name and say Bridget, even though it's spelled the German way. Bridget Pronovost came in at $36, so $3 a month for the annual subscription. And welcome to the flock to Bridget.
Oh, absolutely. That's awesome. I know that annual subscription thing works a lot better for some people, so glad to see her take advantage of that.
Very cool. She said, "Finally joined the flock today. I listen to a lot of podcasts, and I'm always stunned when I see the faces of people I've been listening to.
Oh, no.
Nothing like I imagine. I always pictured Adam to look like this guy, who I remember from the Sarah Silverman show.
Oh, are you going to show me this guy? Boy. Yeah, vaguely remember that show.
Brian Posehn. He's a comedian. He's a funny dude.
Oh,
but he's got about...
Yeah, that's the dude I was thinking of. He was like in a submarine movie and was like the radar guy. It was some terrible comedy. But yeah, that's what she
like
thought.
Down Periscope or something?
Yeah, it was something like that. I didn't know that. That's interesting. So I wonder if what I look like is better or worse than that.
Oh, I don't know. I think you just have a funny, like a comedian style voice. And so I think that's where the association is.
Oh, okay. Well, what was Brandon supposed to look like? What did she think you looked like? David Hasselhoff?
I don't know. I didn't get a famous actor sent to me that I'm supposed to look like.
Well, I'll tell you what, Brandon. I would say she probably envisioned you looking like McConaughey.
It's probably pretty accurate to how I look anyway.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's like 6'1", half and does the other, isn't it? Matthew Brandon, take your pick.
Likes the wrong college football team, but yeah.
Yeah.
It's fine. I get comparisons to McConaughey all the time.
Oh, sure.
Well, a big welcome to all of our new members of the flock. Some benefits, though, to support the show at any amount. You get an email as soon as I post the show, so no need to if you're one of those people who refreshes your podcast feed throughout the week, especially a week like this where it's coming out a little bit later than usual. And so if you've caught yourself refreshing, 10, 15 times throughout the week waiting for this show, if you support the show, you get an email so you know when it's about to hit your podcast feed.
Yeah, if you're a person who does that, you should seek help from a medical professional.
I don't know about that.
I feel like it's similar to the people that take the pills and things are going on for too long and you're supposed to then
there's unhealthy obsessions and there's healthy obsessions. If you're refreshing to get this show, I feel like that's semi-healthy.
Okay, all right,
but it is obsessive.
Yeah.
If you support the show at $3 and above, you get into our Discord chat where we are on game day. You get stickers. $5 and above, you get an I'm a Little Flocker patch.
Yeah.
And I'm running out of those too. So that's going to be kind of a limited time deal now here going forward until I order some more. $12 and above, you get into our Facebook Ring of Honor group, a monthly shout out at the end of the show. And $90 and above, you get credit as our executive producer for the show. And that goes to Dustin Mock and Brian Shaw.
Yeah. So good luck knocking them off the perch, to be honest. I mean,
there's room on the perch for as many executive producers as we want.
I don't know. I think Dustin and Brian might shank a bit.
Catfish!
Yeah, I wouldn't put it past them.
They're hard. They're hard guys.
Another benefit to supporting the show, you keep it ad-free. I saw a survey this past week, Adam, that 38% of podcast listeners think there are too many ads in podcasts.
That seems incredibly low.
Shouldn't it be like 90%?
Yeah.
Well, a big thanks to our members of the flock. The people that were in at $12 and above this last week, they got to see the live BJ Finney pants unboxing.
I'm sure that was extremely memorable for lots of people. Although I am glad that you're still alive. I was worried.
I made it. I feel like now that I'm a few days out, I'm kind of in the safe zone.
It doesn't seem like you have any like crazy mutations going on. Nothing. You seem okay. I don't know.
No, everything seems okay.
All right. Well,
so
that's good.
It was good news. I know a lot of people were worried. I had some people thinking that maybe we unleashed Pandora's box by opening that particular box, and that had something to do with the loss this last week.
Well, the jury's still out on this, so.
Although, okay, so, and another thing, if you do join the flock up at gettingtheflock.com, I did post the video there. And one of the things we did with the pants is we tested them with some control pants. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that was kind of strange is that the Finney pants weighed less than the control pants.
Right.
I think I came up with a hypothesis for why that turned out that way.
Oh, okay.
The saw in the pants was so corrosive that it actually ate away at the material of the pants. So that would have to be why they weighed less.
So it like vaporized it a little bit.
Yeah. Just like a little bit of disintegration, like enough to maintain the integrity, to where
Yeah.
they're not completely falling apart, but enough to eat away, like, I don't know, 5 of the layers, the fabric layers.
Yeah. So basically, the saw eviscerated about 3 ounces of material that was non-critical for it to stay together.
At least, yeah.
Okay. Because I think that was the difference, right? Wasn't it 3 ounces?
It was about 3 ounces, yeah.
Yeah.
But it was the difference of the size 38 versus the size 42.
So are we confident that like saw causes weight loss?
It causes fabric corrosion, I think, is the...
Which was a loss of weight to the fabric, right? So
Right.
saw causes weight loss.
It just sounds weird when you say it that way.
Yeah.
Because weight gain causes saw.
Right.
It can, I think.
Yeah. It's a really interesting feedback loop. You know, there should be more studies done on this.
There's an energy feedback loop, I think, here that is working.
Yeah. So what I'm really getting out of this is that we need to come up with our own weight loss supplement called SAW and just, package that in like a pill form or maybe a tincture. I don't know.
It's strange how this weed podcast is now turning into a science podcast.
Yeah. That's what usually happens when you smoke weed. Like things turn into random conversations all over the place.
I see. I can do it without it.
You might just be high on life, Brandon. That's what it is.
We do have some amazing members of the flock. I want to give a shout out to Doc Scott, who I got an email recently. Said, I thought I'd drop you a message to say that I recorded a DJ mix for the BBC, which aired this past weekend on BBC Radio 1, our national radio station.
That's freaking cool.
I know.
Yeah.
He says it's kind of a big deal over here. But what I wanted to bring to your attention was, do you recognize a familiar voice on the intro of the mix? It's around the 3 to 4 minute mark. And yes, so I'm going to put the link to Doc Scott's Essential Mix from November 28th into the show notes. And yeah, 4 minutes in, you hear Russell Wilson helping to kick off the Essential Mix on BBC Radio. So congrats to Doc on his 25 years with his label 31 Records.
Yeah, that's a big step. And then also being able to sneak a little Russ in there. I mean, Doc's kind of killing it right now.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah.
Hey, we got a pick'em update.
Oh,
Gotta
yeah?
Call out our pick'em winners.
Okay.
Hide and Seek won in week 12 because I think we recorded last week before the last game had just finished up. And Eric with a K won 15 games correct and won the tiebreaker. So congrats to Eric.
I have a guess which one he got wrong.
Yeah. That was the Eagles week.
Oh, okay.
But for week 13, the winner,
Yeah.
it was me. 13 correct last week.
Yeah, that's how I know this is a conspiracy. This is bullshit.
Catfish!
I got the
This is all
Pittsburgh-
rigged.
I
This
got
is
the
the biggest. This is the biggest pick'em fraud in the history of pick'em fraud. I want to recount.
I got the Seahawks game wrong, and I got the Pittsburgh game wrong.
Yeah, I still want to recount,
No,
and I'm gonna have a few states challenge it too.
I was.
This is going to the Supreme Court.
I was on record with Anthony.
Yeah,
Look it up.
no, we'll see about that.
It wasn't because my picks counted for 1.2 picks and everybody else's
Fraud.
counted for 0.8. That's not how this works.
For all I know, you're a dead person that made picks and then turned them in. They shouldn't count.
I did go in and I did have to hack the system this week because I won. I changed one of my picks to a loss just so I could see who the next winning person was because I had the star next to my name and that's how I tell. And there were probably 8 people who had 12 picks correct. And so when I switched one of my picks to a loss, What a Hasselbeck came in as the winner.
Okay, that feels more right. Yeah,
That it
I
wasn't
like
me.
that better. Yeah,
Well, Tuga Hawk is crushing it on the pick'em at the top still. And lots of time left to go, though, for those of you in the hunt there. I got to work my way back up. I'm going to need, I don't know, maybe 10 more weeks, like the week that I just had, to be able to get up into the top spot. But
you know what worked really good for me is just dropping out, and I didn't have to care.
you didn't. Yeah, I don't have to care anymore.
Yeah.
Well, we did have one email that came in that I saved for the mailbag segment. You can go to gohawks@seahawkerspodcast.com. And Brian from Windsor, Ontario came in, says you guys touched on the fact that the Seahawks never seem to be able to blow out a team. Is this by design? Is Pete too nice to send teams home ashamed of themselves? Or can we just not get ahead by 20 plus ever? It's
Catfish!
annoying. but we always take the W when we can get it. So go Hawks. P.S.
Catfish!
The 49ers and
Catfish!
the Rams.
Yeah, all that. I mean, he's got it kind of locked in with what we were saying. I mean, not only that, but this week was extra annoying because we didn't just win by a little bit. We actually lost.
Right.
So like Pete was being even, nicer than he should have been.
I think it is partially by design that we don't blow teams out because Pete's just happy to win. He doesn't care about the blowouts, which is a little bit infuriating.
It is.
I think the only way to get a blowout is by getting multiple defensive scores or the defense getting turnovers to put the offense in position for scores. Because otherwise he ends up just playing conservatively, like going back to the Eagles game, willing to just kind of run the clock out in certain moments.
Yeah, maybe it's just because he's old, and as you get older and you experience more in life, like it takes more to, kind of get the juices flowing, and like he just needs that extra excitement and drama week in, week out. Or maybe Pete's just a drama queen. Maybe that's what it is. I worked really hard to cut all sorts of people out of my life that were full of drama. And yet somehow my football coach is the one that brings me the most these days. And I can't get rid of him. He's here for another 5 years now. And I'm learning to live with it.
Well, that's just the one place that you're going to have to learn to live with it, I suppose.
Yeah.
You don't have control over it. You have to accept it.
That's what they keep telling me, that I have no control over this. But I'm pretty sure Jody Allen's going to give me a call any minute and give me presidential powers of the Seahawks.
We need to wait for confirmation that Jody knows, that we know that Jody's listening.
Why would you? It's like assuming somebody's guilty before, instead of innocent until guilty, like assuming Jody Allen doesn't listen to the show. Like, seriously? Like, I would assume that she does before I assume that she didn't.
Until there's evidence otherwise.
Right. Yeah, of course she listens.
Okay.
Duh.
Well, I know that Jeremy listens down in California because he's sending us more trivia. Here's Jeremy.
What's up, guys? I need to start off by apologizing for the Seahawks loss to the Giants today. In much the same way as there's like a delayed safety blitz or something like that, I think I had a delay. My delay in apologizing for picking against the Seahawks in the pick'em contest when I picked the Rams, that clearly threw off my Hawkra, and there was like a delayed Hawkra effect that caused the Seahawks to lose today. So that one's on me. I just want to apologize to the Seahawks and the 12s for that. Okay, trivia time. So the question from, it was like a month ago now at this point, was against which division does Russ have the best winning percentage, and against which division does Russ have the worst winning percentage? So you were both correct, kind of. So Brandon, you guessed the AFC East, which when I asked it might have been correct. Before the Seahawks lost to the Bills, they had won 9 out of 10 games against the AFC East. But now that they've lost to the Bills, they're 9-2, which is an 81.8% winning percentage. So technically, Brandon was correct. Even with the loss of the Giants today, Russ's record against the NFC least is 14-3, which works out to an 82.4% winning percentage. So slightly better against the NFC least than the AFC least, although better than the other divisions. Okay, now with regards to the worst division, you're both way off. So Adam, you guessed the AFC North, which is actually Russ's third best division record. He's only lost twice to the AFC North, once at home to Baltimore and once on the road to Cincy. I think that was in the Thomas Rawls era. And then Brandon, you guessed the AFC South, which is a little bit closer. They have a 63% winning percentage against the AFC South. Russ is actually only 500 against the AFC West with a 4-4 record. So that is his worst division. His second worst division is the NFC West, which Brandon, you said for a second, but then you changed to the AFC South, where he's got the 63% winning percentage. And against the NFC West, Russ has only won 59% of his games. So 30 wins and 21 losses against the NFC West. So that is a struggle. But the AFC West is definitely the one that he is the worst against. So here goes my question. I decided to mix it up and get away from win-loss questions. And the question for this week, rank the following wide receivers in order of career regular season rushing yards as a Seahawk. The wide receivers are Metcalf, Lockett, Galloway, Percy Harvin, Steve Rabel, and Steve Largent. Once again, rank the following wide receivers in order of career regular season rushing yards as a Seahawk. DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, Joey Galloway, Percy Harvin, Steve Rabel, and Steve Largent. Go Hawks.
Oh, man. Rushing yards?
Rushing yards by the receivers.
Hey,
This is just going to be a complete wild guess.
yeah, this is a complete wild guess. I like how I threw Rabel in there, so I'm going to go with Rabel 1.
Okay.
Because I feel like that's because it's probably some obscure, like he had one like 99-yard run or something, or two 40-yard runs at some point in his career.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to go with Percy, Tyler, then Galloway, Metcalf, and Largent. You wouldn't run with Largent. You just throw him the damn ball.
I'm trying to remember back to 80s football. Did they ever run jet sweeps with, or like, I suppose you have like the reverse plays.
Right. But that's why I was sticking most of the modern players towards the top.
Yeah.
Just because there's more use of a receiver as a runner in today's day and age.
Well,
that's my guess.
I like the idea of Rabel being ahead of Largent.
That needed to happen somewhere in life for Rabes.
Yeah. I just think that way he could, statistically, he has something on Steve Largent. So
Yeah.
I do like Rabel being ahead of him there, but I am going to put, you know what, I'll put Metcalf on the bottom. I'm going to work from bottom to top. I'll put Metcalf on the bottom, then Largent, then Rabel, and then I will go Galloway, Harvin, and Lockett with the most.
Okay. I think that's a fairly solid list.
That feels okay to me.
There's no way either of us comes even close on either of these. So thanks a lot, Jeremy. I appreciate it.
Hey, I'm glad we came relatively close. I'm a little bit disappointed that you. So what you had to
with the Bills victory over the Seahawks, I became right about the winningest division. Yeah, and
with the
maybe in real time you may have picked the correct answer, but being a sayer of sooth, I could see the future and I knew what was going to happen.
So when Jeremy crafted the question, then I was right. If I would have stayed
all
with
this
that
is
guess.
Details. All this is details. It doesn't matter. All I know is that I was right. So,
but I did way better than you on the other question.
Yeah. Well, it's a good thing that the Seahawks moved out of the AFC West back in the day, huh?
Yeah.
Because then Russ would be, terrible in division.
I'm curious if he counted the Super Bowl though.
That counts for like 7 wins, doesn't it?
It should.
Yeah.
All right. Let's move on to do better and better at life.
Well, my do better this week was for last Sunday as a whole, because it was just it was a kick in the balls from the word jump. I wake up to a text from Brittany saying that the Patriots making funny noises. Then I go to actually fill up our well. It's not the
Patriots game. It's like your actual vehicle, the Patriot.
Yeah, the G Patriot, and it's a manual too, by the way. We'll get to that. So then I go to fill up the water tank because we're getting low on water, and the well that I carefully crafted to not freeze had somehow
catfish
frozen for no reason. And then I get to my dad decides he's going to come down and pick up the car and take it to his transmission guy because he really wanted to do that. But it had to happen right now today. And so he drives down from Kalispell and I have to meet him back in Phillipsburg to go take a look at this car that the manual transmission has just totally exploded. There's just a puddle of transmission fluid underneath of it for no reason. And so then I missed the second half of the game because, of course, Dad and Mom want to have lunch now. And then the Seahawks do whatever the
catfish
that was on Sunday and lose 17-12. It was just a
catfish
sandwich of a day, front to back. Last Sunday, do better.
That day does need to do better. It was so bad that now it's actually ruining my Thursday.
Yeah.
Just hearing about
it. I'm sorry. Yeah. It's gone now, though.
My do better this week is for Adam, one of your favorite players of all time. That sellout Barry Sanders.
Gosh, what a terrible dude that guy was.
Yeah, he was a good dude up until recently here, where he went after some local beer company that they thought it would be cool if they made a, because Lions fans have been kind of down this year.
This year.
Okay, overall.
All the years. Yeah.
Well, there was a beer company that used like a Tecmo Bowl. They did kind of a Tecmo Bowl style can with an image of number 20, a Lions running back, and number 20 on the can. And they thought it was fun. They were having a good time making this particular beer can. Well, Barry finds out about it and he tweets out, "I have no affiliation with this company and they are using my image without any permission. My legal team is working through the process to shut this down ASAP. Apologies to any fans that were duped." So alongside Barry going after some local small beer company for designing this can that, yeah, it's pixelated out, but it's clearly, you can tell it's a picture of a Barry Sanders photo that they pixelated. I wouldn't normally have a problem with that, but this tweet is sandwiched in between two other tweets where Barry is posting about ads for Hyundai. He's tweeting about Hyundai, posting ads in his Twitter, and then going after this small-time beer company that just wanted to, have a little fun with like a limited edition style beer. So for Barry Sanders, going after the little guys, do better.
Well, okay. So if he's tweeting all about a car company and then this beer company without any permission, has him promoting alcohol, that's promoting drinking and driving basically at that point. And that puts him in legal peril. So I can understand why you go after the beer people. But in all seriousness, though, like knowing you, Brandon, if you were a beer company and you were going to put somebody's likeness on a can, would you check with that person before or not?
You should probably check with them, but
everybody knows that. You should probably check with them. And maybe Barry hates beer.
Well, I think
maybe this is like using his likeness to promote a product that he feels strongly about, like you feel about the gambling stuff.
Well, Barry clearly likes money, so why doesn't he come back and say, "Hey, why don't you just give me, a little percentage for using my pixelated Tecmo Bowl style image on your can, and everything's cool."
But maybe that's how this all buffs out.
But instead, he has to go and shut it down.
Yeah, it is a little bit of a killjoy. But just for future reference, if anybody wants to use my likeness on a beer can to promote it, bombs away. Have at it, guys.
As long as Adam's getting at least a case sent to his house on the regular.
Yeah. Think of it, like on a beer club type level. Yeah, somewhere in there.
Yeah, that seems like a good trade. I feel like that would be a good deal for Barry, too.
Yeah, there you go. But again, maybe he's anti-beer.
He's anti-Detroit Lion fan is what it sounds like.
Well, he does hate the Lions. And I think rightfully so.
Well, the organization, but these are Lions fans.
Yeah, I know.
All right, on to Better at Life.
My Better at Life this week, and this probably won't surprise you, Brandon, but it's for SpaceX and Elon Musk. And they're better at life this week for crashing a freaking rocket.
They crashed it.
Yeah. So this last couple days, they fired their latest prototype of I'm still going to go with the BFR. I know they changed the name of it to Starship, but I like the name Big
Catfish
better. So I'm going to keep calling it the BFR, like it was originally named. This is their prototype. It's like 16 stories tall. And this was the first time to like kind of fly it and see what it would do. They got it about 45,000 feet or so in the air. Win. Good job.
Uh-huh.
And then the whole point of it, like all the rockets, is that they're reusable, right? So then they got to land the thing. Sounds like they maybe ran out of gas and they came in a little hot. And then there was a fireball.
Ooh.
And yeah, it exploded right on the pad there. So, but you can only learn in rocketry through failure. I feel like that's an important thing of it. And so for spending the money and having failure and being able to learn from it to give us eventually a ride to Mars, Elon Musk and SpaceX, better at life than Skip Bayless.
Just got to crash a few rockets to get to Mars.
You got to break a few eggs to make an omelet,
Right. My Better at Life this week is for Adam. There's some all-time great sports movies, right? You got Blindside, you got Tin Cup, Happy Gilmore, Rocky, Dodgeball, all great sports movies.
Mm-hmm.
You can add a new movie to this list, Zoolander. Because this past week, breakdancing became an official Olympic sport. Breakdancing. On ESPN, they say how the International Olympic Committee's pursuit of urban events to lure a younger audience saw street dance battles officially added to the medal events program at the 2024 Paris Games. Not only did they add breakdancing, I was happy to see cuts to weightlifting. I don't know how preparing your body for sports is an actual sport. So Olympic Committee making all kinds of good decisions. And I'm happy because that breakdance battle in Zoolander between Hansel and the evil DJ, it qualifies it as possibly one of the greatest sports movies of all time. If Die Hard is a Christmas movie, Zoolander is a sports movie, and it's all thanks to the Olympic Committee. And for that, they are better at life than Skip Bayless.
What's next? Is like toenail clipping going to be like an Olympic sport? Breakdancing?
Yeah.
Breakdancing.
Athletic.
Breakdancing.
Adam, weightlifting was an Olympic event before breakdancing.
Yeah, it's like one of the original Olympic events.
Yeah.
What,
Great.
because weightlifting doesn't have any rhythm to it? You're mad about it?
Maybe
I don't know, man.
rhythmic weightlifting, it would make it more interesting.
I guess the slippery slope that we should be worried about is male modeling going to become an Olympic sport next. Is that the next one?
They're just taking all their cues from Zoolander.
Yeah, they're going to just sit there, like, do blue steel face all day and see who can do the best one.
The catwalk event.
Yeah.
I don't know if that takes a ton of athletic capability.
Well, neither does golf, and yet that's a sport. So supposedly,
Is it an Olympic sport now?
it was for a minute, I think.
I thought it was like
Yeah.
a test. Like they were testing it out. Did they finalize it? I don't know.
It's a fine game. Golf.
Hey,
It's not a sport.
if walking really, really fast can be an Olympic sport, why can't walking slowly and swinging a club?
Is walking really, really fast an Olympic sport?
Yeah, that's
Power walking is a
speed
Olympic
walking?
sport?
You never seen the speed walking guys?
Oh my God. This is going off the rails. Who cares anymore? Put the flame out. It's over.
And with that,
There's only one thing left to say.
go Hawks.
Go Hawks.
Well, it's something that, I mean, it seems like you would end it. I don't want to say this.
You going to make it there? Are you going to be okay?
I don't know.
Did I get you up too early for this today?
Maybe.